Hello, I'm Dave from DinoPC, and yet again we're bringing you another Top 5. So, last week you saw us do this video where we discussed the top 5 worst tech products ever made. And this week we thought we'd make the top 5 most influential products that have ever been made. Remember, all the opinions on this video are indeed my own and may not necessarily reflect those at DinoPC. So, let's get started. In 1983, Motorola released the first commercial mobile phone. It was known as the Motorola DynTAC 8000X, catchy name as I'm sure that you're aware. But the most incredible thing about this phone is some of its statistics compared to nowadays. Only 30 minutes of battery call time before it would die, and 6 hours of standby mode time. That's nearly an entire working day. Incredible. The cost, well, that was simple. £2,630. Or, well, $4,000. It's pretty obvious to see why this phone has changed the world. It was the first mobile phone that you were able to buy for yourself on the go. And nothing has been the same ever since. It was launched in 1983 and, well, it was a brick. People would find new and inventive ways of managing to carry them around. Sometimes you would carry around a giant battery pack which you could hoist over yourself, or you would simply turn the phone off until the time that you needed to call someone. Never mind if they wanted to call you. So yeah, that's it. Number 5. Okay, so what about number 4? I promised myself I'd only put one Apple product on this list. Yeah, and it was a toss-up between the iPad or the iPod. So the iPod then. I'm sure that you guys were expecting this because who wouldn't be? The iPod wasn't the first MP3 player, nor was it the last MP3 player, but certainly it brought music to the masses. It started off, as actually quite a lot of Apple products do, not selling greatly. It was released in 2001 and was only compatible with the Mac operating system. It was only later, when iTunes was introduced to Windows, that all of a sudden everything changed. The integration of iTunes and the iTunes Store, meaning that you could buy music through your computer, was absolutely incredible. iTunes got record labels on board, something that Napster never did. And of course, who can forget the ease of use, or the style of it? The click wheel was perfect, enabling you to sort through songs with ease. I actually missed the click wheel. I kind of wish they put it in iPhones and you could like have a retro look and just have the thing on it. That would be cool. Apple. The iPod has many iterations. The Shuffle, the Nano, the Mini, the Touch, the Classic, and even more. Going up to 7th gen on the Nano even. In recent years, the iPod has seen a decline in sales, but it is still no less declined in our hearts, something that has brought music to the masses for generations. The iPod has become the staple, the ultimate white good, and will be remembered far longer than me. Or anyone else, pretty much. Maybe not Steve Jobs. Number 3 is the Nintendo Entertainment System. What? A console on the list? Dave, how could you? You did this last week. Well, guess what? If it wasn't for the NES or the NES, you wouldn't be playing video games today. Probably. For those of you who don't know, in 1983, the same year that Motorola released that insane phone, the video game business was crashing. Atari was flooding the market. Third parties were flooding the market with shoddy games, and the hardware at the time was, well, completely awful. Along came the Nintendo Entertainment System, which branded itself not as the then taboo name of video game console, but as an entertainment system. After this, Nintendo pulled the wool from over our eyes and went, ta-da, it really is a video gaming system, and it was too late because everybody had already bought it. Bringing classics such as Mario and Zelda, it showed that video games didn't have to be blocky 8-bit terrors that were completely boring and very samey to play. As well as that, it had more buttons, more control on its pad, and also came with things like the zapper and many other things besides. The point is that it revived what Atari had destroyed. The video game industry became booming again, and it was all thanks to Nintendo. Number 2, we come to a choice that is, well, extremely difficult for me, because do you go for the original, or do you go for the copy that did it better? Windows. Windows copied Mac OS from the Macintosh. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They even shared some of the same software, as Windows had actually licensed parts of it from Macintosh itself, but it made it simpler, much easier to use. In fact, it was so simple you couldn't even overlay the windows that are on top of each other. You just had to view it in a tile format, hence the Windows tiles. That's why they're Windows tiles. Windows wasn't actually technically an operating system. It was what was called a graphical user interface, or GUI. Basically, this means that they kind of took DOS and then made it make sense for us stupid people. The rest is history. Windows is now everywhere, and we're not just talking about the things that you put up in your house. We're talking about on mobile phones, laptops, tablets, computers. Almost every single piece of electronic equipment today can find a little bit of itself derived from Windows. I know you guys are going to say, oh, but what about my iPhone? That definitely doesn't have anything to do with Windows. But what about applications and programs? Where do you think they started their history? On Windows, of course. Well, on Mac originally, but then Windows took that and kind of copied it and made it a bit better, and that's why it sold more. Sorry, Macintosh. Okay, so I said there was going to be only one Apple product on here, and that was kind of a bait and switch, because there were cameras, there was the internet, there were applications and programs, there were user interfaces, there were MP3 players, and, well, there were clocks, watches, almost anything. But until this product came along, you'd never had it all in one. Yes, it is, of course, the Apple iPhone. Now, yeah, I know what you're all going to say. You're all going to say, but the internet is that it's not technically a product. It is simply kind of a culmination of millions of computers together making it. It's not a product. The internet is not a product. You can't, for example, go out and buy an internet. Whereas you can go out and buy a copy of Windows, or you can go out and buy an NES. It's going to be a bit dusty, but you know, and you can of course go out and buy an iPhone. And it should be fairly obvious why this is at number 1. Believe it or not, the iPhone was actually a relative flop compared to what happened later. If you have a look at this sales chart that I totally didn't take off Google Images, then you can see that the iPhone 3 and the 3G and the 4 were actually not that well selling of phones. And then we get to the iPhone 4S, or the Siri. This is where everything changed. Not just because Apple introduced Siri, their voice command system. It was because they opened app development for everyone. So now you at home could create your very own Flappy Bird, or you could get apps for almost just about anything. They didn't have to be super Apple approved, or you didn't have to get them directly from Apple. These are applications made for the people, by the people. It's something that Android had been doing for a very long time, and of course Apple decided to do it as well, and that was when the boom happened. It is an absolutely incredible feat, and it didn't stop there. The 5 and especially the 5S sold incredibly well. The iPhone meant that you could have YouTube or internet. You could video or take photographs on the go that didn't look completely awful. It was very easy to offload music onto it through iTunes, which had already been there, through the iPod, because you obviously had owned an iPod because it was the best MP3 player. So iTunes was there, ready for you to simply just plug your iPhone in and go. The photos weren't terrible. The video wasn't terrible. The internet browsing experience was a lot better. The applications and games on the go meant that you not only had a phone in your hand, you essentially had a multimedia entertainment tool at your disposal. I know people who have iPhones, and indeed any smartphone, which is what the iPhone really was, the first smartphone, who don't have televisions, who don't have PCs. They simply have maybe a tablet and a phone. Quite often, it's an iPhone. iPhones are incredible. They're everywhere. If you live in London, you will see tons of them if you ever go on the tube. It is amazing how much Apple have managed to reap from this beautiful product. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you didn't enjoy the video, then leave a dislike. But let us know why you disliked in the comment section below. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of disagreements over the top 5 most influential products of all time. So here's what you're going to do. Leave a comment down below and say, what are your most influential products ever made? To you personally. To me personally, those were the 5. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I think a lot of people are going to be very angry that I didn't include the internet. But it's not a product.
Yeah, true.
It's just not a product. So it's
Really bad.
you can't go out and buy an internet.
Yeah.
You know, you can buy a phone that has internet on it. Yeah. A lot of people are going to call me like Apple fanboy, but you don't know what my phone is. My first phone, my very first smartphone, was the Google G1, which is the first Android Google phone that they sold in the UK. You could only get it on T-Mobile, and it was awful. It would slow down so much after about 3 days of use. You had to like clear everything out of it and then like start again from fresh, install all your apps again, and then 3 days later you'd be like, oh, it's super slow again. Just got to install everything. It was awful. What do you think? Maybe our DinoPC PCs are in the top 5 products that are the most influential of all time. Let us know. We'll see you next time. Peace.